Kurt Bardella, NewsNation contributor and Democratic strategist. All right, Scott, we're going to combine this with the fact that in swing state polling right now, as it stands today, Donald Trump is up overall. Who'd you rather be?
I'd still rather be Donald Trump because of what you said. The swing state polling is what it is. Actually, an hour ago, nationally, Donald Trump and Joe Biden in the DDHQ, the Hill polling average, are tied. First time they've ever been tied in 6 months.
Well, but that means that Donald Trump's trending down and Joe Biden's trending up.
Correct. Nationally. We don't elect our president nationally. It's that swing state polling average you're talking about. And so usually the national is sometimes a foreshadowing for some of these battleground states. So, we're going to have this conversation in a month right now. But in the battleground states, I'd rather be Donald Trump.
Scott's wrong. I'd rather be Joe Biden. I think that what we saw in Pennsylvania particularly, I think that is more worrisome if you're Donald Trump than prefer someone else or not even another candidate type thing. Like, they are specifically picking Nikki Haley, who is not running and hasn't been running for a really long time at this point. 16% of the Republican voters there are like, yeah, we're not gonna go with Donald Trump, even though we know he's the nominee. It's like, that is a giant source. Like, that's like more than 150,000 votes or something went for Nikki Haley.
It's also something, to be fair, the uncommitted push on Joe Biden seems to be largely about this issue of Gaza.
Right.
We can spend a long time on that issue, but it's about that issue. And you think about Summer Lee, who is there, who's been tweeting about genocide and on and on and on. And look, there's a big part of the Democratic Party that's Hamas adjacent. That said, there's no issue for Donald Trump that there's this wedge issue on. Those 150,000 people, Scott, actively just don't like him.
Yeah, no, and they came out in an election. They checked a box, they sent out a piece of mail, and it's not like some of those ABEV votes, those early votes, were sent when Nikki Haley was still in the race. They were sent after she was clearly out of the race. And, those are voters that Trump is going to need to get back if he's going to close the gap, especially when you factor in that RFK in the state of Pennsylvania, which he's qualified to get into, is polling at between 6 and 7%.
Wow. All right, so you think about now when Donald Trump is not on the campaign trail, although he has a rally now he's scheduled for next Wednesday in Michigan, when he's in court every day. He talks about how, hey, I'm in court and not on the campaign trail. Take a listen. All right, so we don't have the soundbite, but he says they're keeping me in a courtroom, then goes on to attack Joe Biden. I guess, Kurt, reasonable people can agree that the cases are not going the way Democrats would have hoped for them to go, all the criminal cases against Joe Biden. But they're going well enough, the cases against Donald Trump, not as well as Joe Biden would like. Mm-hmm. I guess, though, when Trump says he should be on the campaign trail, this sort of proves he's right.
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing. It's not how well the cases go. It's that every single day that Donald Trump is spending in a courtroom and not on the campaign trail, not in Arizona or Georgia or Michigan or Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or wherever, that's a win for the Democrats, in my opinion. That's a win for the campaign. Any campaign that's campaigning from a courtroom, that's not going to be a winning campaign.
The counter data point to that, though, is every time he comes to the camera and complains about the deep state and legalizing or weaponizing the courts, he raises a lot of money, and he needs the money to compete. So,
but does going there and complaining do well with his base, or does that do anything for the 150,000 people in Pennsylvania who voted against him?
So it doesn't do a whole lot for those 150,000 or those swing voters, but he needs money to convince them, and it does do well for him on the fundraising side.
Except that money's going to be spent on his legal defense fund and not on persuading
that
voters.
I can't speak to. That might be where it is, but yeah.
Look, we made this graphic especially for you, Scott, betting odds for president. Yeah. You're betting on the guy who's 10 cents down?
Yeah, but there's some value there. Now, here's what I would say, right? This is why I like
But you bet this much to win $1.
You bet this much to win $1, but this is like a market. Trump might be at 45 today. He might be at 65 here in a month. He might drop down to 35. I think, and quote me on this, someone clip this out here, we are going to see multiple lead changes, right, between now and the end. We're going to have Joe Biden's going to have a good week where I'm going to say I'm going to want to be Joe Biden. Trump is having a pretty good week in the swing state polls. That's why I say it now. We're going to have multiple lead changes. So what I would say is take the Trump at 45, maybe sell it at 65, and then buy some Biden. Go back and forth on some of this.
Stock advice from Scott Tranter. I mean, I don't think Scott's wrong, by the way, on that. I think that there are going to be fluctuations. I think there are going to be a lot of ups and downs. I don't think at any point in time will either of these two really be pulling outside the margin of error against one another.
Yeah, well, at least the trend lines right now, Joe Biden nationally trending up, Donald Trump.
Let me leave you one more data point. Last night in Pennsylvania, we had a race that you showed up. 90% of the vote in Pennsylvania was counted before midnight. That was not the case in 2020. That is a good data point come this fall, considering that Pennsylvania is going to be a key state. We might not have to wait 4 days for a state that decides it.
I was just going to say, people to ask you, what do you hope for in the election?
Yeah.
You hope to know
a quick resolution.
that night. Yeah, exactly. All right, gentlemen, good to see you. Thank you.